Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of Manure Mondays. And my name is Andrew Barry with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And along with Christine Brown from the ministry, we would like to welcome you back to March Manure Mondays. And last week we had a great session. We looked at sand-laden manure, and we looked at some of the challenges around that, and one particular solution, which was a recycling technology that was quite interesting. So we had a great turnout, great discussion, and that session, actually, we have it recorded, we have it posted, and so you're welcome to see that now. We will put in the chat a link for you to access that, as well as send you that link in upcoming emails. So these sessions do all get recorded, and they do get posted on the OMAFRA Field Crop News YouTube channel. Thank you for staying muted. We appreciate the silence in terms of audio, but we certainly don't want you to stay silent in terms of being engaged and asking your questions or posting your comments. So the chat is open. If you put any questions there, we will pull those forward to our speakers today, and we look forward to any comments you have as we're going along as well. Okay, last week I left the ball hanging on something, a bit of a cliffhanger. We asked you a question from one of our speakers, a bit of a quiz, and here it was. What is the swine industry doing to clean pigs' legs in 2024? Left it hanging, didn't give you the answer. So once again, what is the swine industry using to clean pigs' legs in 2024? And the answer is ham sanitizer. So there you go. You didn't know you were also on the Comedy Channel, but that's a pretty bad dad joke. So this week, new topic, we are going to look at addressing manure application logistics and also field strategies. So what I'd like to do to start the chat off is if you could post in the chat, if you are a custom operator, any aspect of manure management, but you're a custom operator, could you put in the chat, tell us who you are, where you are, what your business is, and that just would be interesting for the rest of the group to see what sort of things are happening out there. A few more quick logistics. We will go 45 to 60 minutes. We'll stop at the hour at the latest. It is recorded and posted. It also has been credited for Certified Crop Advisors 1 CEU credit, and that is in the nutrient management designation. We also have a program in Ontario. It's a federal government program called OFCAF, and this has been credited as a knowledge sharing event. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it doesn't apply to you and just ignore what I'm saying. But for those who are in that funding program, you can access this as a KSE event. So we will post that QR code at the end as well. Okay, very good. So looking forward to your questions as we go through, and I'm really looking forward to this session. We have two gentlemen that are going to co-present today, and so we'll go through their slides, which include some videos. First of all, Larry Beringer, who, Larry, you've met in the past. He's been on Manure Mondays, so he's no stranger to you folks. But Larry runs a business called Pumped Environmental Services. And he's going to be talking from the perspective of the drag hose system today. And then we have Ron Boltz from Pit King Ltd. And he's going to be talking about tanker operations. So the two of them will be sharing some slides and basically talking about what they're doing, managing equipment and field operations. So Colin, I'm going to let you go ahead and pull up their slides. As I said, Larry is going to start. So we'll turn it over to Larry and take it away, Larry and Ron.
Good afternoon. Talking about one of my favorite subjects today. Usually when people ask me what I'm thinking, I usually end the conversation with a disclaimer. And that usually is, but then again, what do I know? So I don't profess to be the end-all be-all in drag hose operation. But I do want to go through a little bit of an introduction of how I got into this business. And then I'm sharing with you techniques that we've developed and we're using to make our entity profitable. So I started spreading liquid manure back in 1996. At that time, drag hose was not even heard of. We used a hard hose reel and applied manure with an irrigation gun. And then in the year 2000, I pulled the irrigation gun off and we had a very simple boom that we put together to get us started with the drag hose. So the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of changes with manure. We've seen manufacturers coming on board. If somebody would have talked to me in 2000 and told me that there'd someday be a boat floating around the manure tank to agitate the manure tank, I would have told them they were crazy. But today, that is very common. So dribble bars are coming, pumps are getting bigger, hose sizes are getting bigger. We're spreading in crop now, something that we never did when we first started spreading manure. So the industry is really evolving. The precision farming with GPS, as applied maps, auto steer, things are really changing, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with the change. But I find I have to be open to new ideas as they come along, or first thing you know, I'll be outdated and have to look for something else to do. So I've been going to the North American Manure Expo since 2011. The first couple of years I went, my head was kind of spinning because I'm located in southern Ontario, and a lot of the things that were being said at the Manure Expo were geared more to Western USA, Western Canada. However, as I kept going back year after year, I was able to pick up little tidbits of information and was able to incorporate them into my own operation. So not everything I heard applied to me, but by keeping my ear to the ground and my eyes open, I could pick up various things. The other thing I did, I went on a tour of Ireland 1 year to see how things were done over there. And it is unbelievable how much difference there is when it comes to spreading manure. What we do here in Western Ontario is different from Eastern Ontario. And then when we go south into the US, it's different again. So it's there's always something to learn, I find. So in my business, I like to use the illustration of the tortoise and the hare. So we get paid by the gallon when we're spreading. So all our setup time, all our moving time, that's just adds to our overhead cost of doing a job. So we found that we were spreading half the day. Like if we took our work day and dissected it, we were spreading about half the time in the day, and the other half time we were moving and resetting equipment. And we came to the conclusion that if we could spread manure all day long without having to stop and reset equipment, that it would cut down our overhead and it would make the day a lot more profitable for us. So the last 3 years, we've developed a strategy. Going to the North American Manure Expo, I was always asked for ideas on what information sessions I would like to hear when I go there. And my response to that was, we hear a lot about pumps and engines and hoses and flows, but what do you do with the manure once it gets to the field? So I call that my spreading strategy, and I wasn't able to find information sessions on that. And when I voiced my opinion, next thing I knew, they asked me to talk about it. So here I am today. So some of the challenges that we have running a drag hose, when we're pulling a hose on a 45-degree angle in the field, we come to the end of the field and we have a very hard time turning around at the end of the field. A simple solution to that is to do a 3-point turn. And the reason you can't turn around at the end of the field is because when you're pulling the drag hose, it's like a great big slingshot behind you. So the more you pull, there's more resistance trying to hold you back from the weight of the hose, and the hose is stretching and the tensile strength is pulling against you. So what we started doing, one unit that I saw at the Manure Expos was a hose humper. And that intrigued me very much as to what couldn't we do with a hose humper. And what we've come up with, we're still finding new things out every day, but this unit, and I do have a slide with the manure with the hose humper on the front. Can we? So most hose humpers are built for the 3-point hitch of the tractor, but being an older gentleman, I don't like looking over my shoulder all the time. So we built one that fit on the front of our loader. So the hose humper can be used in two positions. It can be used like a big free-wheeling pulley to move hose and lay hose, or we can apply a brake and hook on the hose and drag it. So those are the two main functions with a hose humper, but we found out it goes a lot farther than that. So now with a hose humper, we did not have to pull as much hose in the field. I remember talking to one guy, and I told him, I said, with a 1,320-foot long hose, soft hose, we only pull about a 2,500-foot diagonal in the field. And he said, oh, that's crazy. He says, I can pull 3,000 feet on the diagonal. I said, oh, really? I said, have you ever ripped your hose in half? He says, yeah, we do it all the time. Well, if you do something like that all the time, why do you still do it? That was kind of my question, and he didn't have an answer for me. So with this hose humper unit, we've had to change our thinking 360 degrees. So we no longer operate on a 45-degree angle in the field. We look at each field that we cover on an individual basis and determine what is the best angle to be operating in that field. And why is this angle important? Well, we almost work directly crossways on some fields. And what that means is when we come to the edge of the field and we do our turn at the end of the field, we can get a very complete coverage. Not 100%, but the ground we miss when we turn at the end of the field is very minimal. And we can do hockey stick turns, we can do other things. But what has made turning possible for us is the fact that we do not pull as much hose in the field. Usually we only pull about 800 feet of hose behind the tractor. And by pulling that length of hose, when we come to the end of the field, the hose does not restrict us, and we can turn around and make a complete 180-degree turn at the end of the field. So there's a couple benefits from doing this. Our biggest complaint that I've had since 2001 running a drag hose is that when we turn around, we do a 3-point hitch turn, we're over applying on the headlands of the field. So we're putting twice the manure on the headlands that we're spreading in the middle of the field. So by being able to do a 180-degree turn at the end of the field, we've eliminated that over application on the headlands. So the quality of our job kept increasing. So the farmer's happy with our job. OMAFRA's happy with our job because now we've reduced the chance of a runoff from the edge of the field by over applying it. But using this hose humper now with 320 feet of hose, a standard setup in an ideal field is 50 acres in one setup. Well, using the hose humper now, we've eliminated that we no longer have to work with a 50-acre setup, because the second tractor on the hose humper is moving hose, and it keeps the same amount of hose behind the drag hose tractor consistently. So now we can work our way down the field. So instead of doing a 100-acre field in two 50-acre setups, we can now do it in one setup. So previously doing two 50-acre setups and doing 3-point turns, we would have a strip across the middle of the field where our two 50-acre setups touched. That would be way over applied. So now we don't have that. Our spread is more consistent. The other thing is, if we're not stopping to reset hose, the the meter on the pump is still ticking and the dollars are still flowing in. As soon as that pump stops to move hose, whether we blow the hose or drag the hose full of manure or do a zone blowout or whatever, that clock stops and you're not making any money. So we found that in our working day, without adding any more hours at the end of the day, some days we've gained an extra 2 to 3 hours of income producing time. So that's really helped us out. The other thing where a hose humper works really great for us, we don't work in very many perfect fields. We get all kinds of different shapes. We get triangular shaped fields, we get L shaped fields. We might have two fields side by side, but only with a gateway be opening in the fence line between the two fields. So using the hose humper, we can actually drive through that gateway and start spreading a pattern into the second field. And while we're spreading, I can be pulling hose from the first field into the second field so that we don't have to shut down to reset. We've got fields where power lines run through the field and dissect the field. And now we can work around them without too much trouble. One of the big things that I never even thought of when we started using a hose humper, when everybody talks about compaction, they think about tankers. They think about putting air systems on the tankers for the tire inflation to adjust the tire pressure. Everybody says, "Oh, a drag hose is great. You don't have near the compaction." Well, as hose sizes get bigger and we start pulling longer hoses, we'll find that our drag hose tractor has to work harder. If that tractor is working hard and it's biting into the ground to pull that hose, we've just created a compaction situation. So by going with our second tractor, we can reduce the amount of hose we're pulling with our drag hose tractor, and therefore the effects of compaction on our job are minimized as well. And it's amazing when you get into some of these things and you start analyzing the results you're getting. Sometimes things don't work, but sometimes you end up getting a lot more benefit from the job than what you would have initially thought. One of the other challenges we have running a drag hose systems is getting across roads. If there's a culvert available in the road, we definitely use that to our advantage. We've got some jobs where permanent pipes are buried underneath the road that we can hook our hose onto either sides of the buried pipe. And we've got some customers that have installed underground pipeline systems so that we can access fields through an underground pipeline and not be worried about any crops that are standing in the fields between us and the barn where the manure is coming from. So one thing that is starting to appear on the market now is called a pipe bridge. This is an overhead piping system that can be easily set up so that you have 14 feet of clearance underneath the bridge and you can pump manure up and over the road and the traffic can drive through unobstructed. We do have a unit that we've used since 1998 that we can lie on the road. So this is only for secondary use only. We don't put this on a primary road. And we can pump manure through it and the traffic can drive over top of it. And it's basically the same as hitting a speed bump in a parking lot. So we do have it flagged. We usually have a man posted and try and slow the traffic down as they go over top of it. And then if jobs are, so we do a lot of jobs in the 1.5 to 2 mile range. So for longer distance jobs, trucks and frac tanks or nurse tanks come into play so that there really isn't a limit as to how far you can move the manure. It just becomes a issue of what are the logistics and how much is the customer willing to pay to move the manure. So the other thing we try and do when we're working with the tortoise and the hare theory We like to walk when we're on a job. I don't like to see anybody running. Usually I find that when you run from place to place, you take 3 steps forward and 1 or 2 steps backwards. But if you slow it down and walk, you're constantly moving ahead. So at the end of the day, you get a lot more work done and burn less energy. So you save your energy for the next day rather than getting burned out in one day. The other change that I've seen that has been a big game changer, when I first started spreading manure, the only way you control pumps was with 2 guys, and you could talk on 2-way radios. And then the technology came out that we could actually operate the pumps with 2-way radios. And now today's society, we're using Wi-Fi, using a cell phone or a tablet to operate the pumps. So, but the cell phone is a very useful tool. More than when they first came out, we were just using them for talking on. And then we started using the calculator to do our calculations for tank volumes and application rates. And now today with the app that we use on our phone, we can measure fields, we can measure the distance we drive. It really is a useful tool for us to use. So there is another video, I believe, that we could go to now. So we found that because we're covering larger areas, when we run with 1 booster pump or multiple booster pumps, there usually is a booster pump that ends up in the field where we're spreading. And we found we were limited with the booster pump and the length of hose from the booster pump out to the drag hose tractor. So then we came up with the idea that, hey, if a drag hose tractor can pull a drag hose while we're spreading, why can't a pump pull the drag hose as well, so we can move it down the field? Now we usually just inch this down the field, moving it 100 or 200 feet at a time. We've got the one job we do that's 150 acres, and where that pump starts in the field and where it is at the end of the job, we've moved that pump 2,600 feet down the field. So that's half a mile that we've moved our booster pump while we're pumping at full spreading speed. We don't slow down. So this booster pump can be moved a couple different ways. We can pull it with a tractor like you've seen here, or we've actually made that pump that we can drive it with a handheld remote while we're pumping. So if we can go to the next picture. Well, here's a picture of our spreader tractor. We're working in a field, and you can see by our spread pattern here that we're basically going straight across this field. We're not working on an angle. And I think there is a little part of the clip that shows the hose humper tractor pulling the hose down the field to keep feeding that tractor. So the hose humper tractor is usually working where we've already spread manure. Some of the guys have said, yeah, but you're driving a tractor on a field that you've just spread. You're going to be leaving tracks. Well, the key with the hose humper is not to pull a big section of hose at one time. It's to pull small sections. So any tracks that we make with the hose humper, they are barely noticeable after the job. But if we got carried away, we could, like anything else, you can do a good job with it, or you can get carried away and go overboard and make a mess. So it takes a little bit of management to get a feel for it. Okay, I think I've said all I want to say for now. If Ron wants to take it away, he can go from here.
Thanks, Larry. That was good. Yeah, this is just I am Ron Bolt's Pit King here. This is just a little video. I'm not sure if we're going to run it right now, but video of us spreading, and we run some hula tanks and some vacuum trucks and a drag hose system here. But this video just shows yeah, the tractor and tanks going, and we got a lagoon crawler in the pit. As we're doing this, just trying to spread in a timely manner and a compaction We try and do our best on compaction, like Larry says, on how to spread and kind of control path on what we're doing. And this beetle at the end isn't quite right, but it's close enough. But yeah, it's just on going through how we in our day-to-day operation here. As you can see, we've tried some 1400 tires here, just for some compaction here, trying to help with the issue and be a little better on the roadway running down the pavement on how we do things. Yes, we've been hauling manure since well, it's actually started in '88. My cousin had started it, and then my brother-in-law Tony got into it in '91, and then I got into this in '93 and '94 with those guys. So yeah, just it's been manure for quite a few years now, and things have really changed over the years too on what manure was and how it used to be. It used to be there's the field and there's the pit. Let's get rid of it. And today's totally different. We did a lot more manure sampling and field sampling to get the soils, and let's put this manure, use it best where it should be used and get utilized to achieve the best out of the product. And go to the next slide here. We've built we like to build stuff here at Pit King. We built some engines here that we tow behind the tankers. And then we get to the job site, we can it's got the pit pump with it, and we back the pit pump into the pit. And usually we can remote load, but right here we're not, but we do have remote load on these tanks, and they can just sit in the tractor and away they go. Yeah, just to help speed up, and you get tired running out of the tractor all the time back and forth to the pump. So we have gone with remote loading. It's worked really well for us. Usually when a farmer calls, we try to have a good chat with him, see what kind of equipment he wants this year. Everybody is different. Everything is different. Every farm you go to, what they need done, how far they're going to go, whether it's going to be a vacuum truck that goes, or one of these tanks, or a couple of tanks. But if it's a sand pit, the crawler, what's going to be used. So have a good discussion with the farmer, and discuss with him when he wants us to show, like, what works best for both parties to get things done, and kind of do certain areas. You can't drive all over the place. And just have a good communication with the farmer on trying to what needs to be done, and how he wants us to spread. If you can keep going through the slides here, I think there's a few more. Just keep doing different. Like some guys control traffic. If a farmer has got lots of horsepower, we can follow the same path, and he can chisel plow that path up when we're done. But if he doesn't have a lot of horsepower, he may want us to do random paths here and there and equally across the field, and try and spread and like take different paths back and forth. But it's all in the communication and talking to the farmer. And generally we always try to start at the back corner of the field, come into it and start at the back corner, and set yourself up and work your way back to the driveway instead of coming in the driveway. And yeah, some guys, well, I've seen it lots of times, go in, they start spreading, they're getting lots done, but they're driving through it all day and dragging mud and manure everywhere over the road, driveway, and that's just not something that wants to be done all the time. I think we try and do a neat job, and we do a bit of injection too, do a fair bit of injection for different, some egg source and non-egg source, but it has fit good in our business, eh? We just run a Dietrich injector. We don't run, I think the toolbars and the drop tubes, they work good. Just doesn't always fit in our application. They will. We're working on it to get. I think it's a great idea. We do try, if we are top dressing, we are low to the ground. We don't try and go up 10 feet, 12 feet up high. We try and keep it low, distribute that. It seems to be lose less when we're spreading. You can see here we're going into a cover crop on the left there, and we've had good success with that. And we've done that both ways. We've done it the cover crop when she's up and growing, and right when they've actually spread it on just before we've shown up. So we've had good results both ways. Doesn't matter which way we do it. It seems to be on a cover crop. When you inject it, it does a good job. The lagoon crawler. The farmers really had to adapt to that. That was when it first came around, we were okay. We had lots of horsepower and 3 or 4 pumps in a pit. trying to get that sand out, and you'd spend all day and lots of pound burn fuel, and you'd have 2, 3, 4 feet of sand left over. And now with this lagoon curl, it's really just kind of made everything work really good. It's worked good in our business. Seems to get that sand out of the pit. We've had to adapt in our tanks. We put augers in our tanks now. They're recirc. We had recirc in it, but that wasn't working, and we were getting built up. So we put augers in our tanks, and that seems to take care of that problem. And they empty out quite well. Works really good. Yeah, we do a bit of custom crawling too for other operators too. A bit of that is what we do. Go to the next slide. Sometimes the pit's pretty full when we get there. You can notice this one. We can hardly set the crawler in without it going over the edge. But it's a system that works really well, from what we've seen. We have some vac trucks too. We got 4 vac trucks, and they work really well too on our for spreading. They're really. We actually started the business with the vacuum trucks and a drag hose, and then got the Hula tanks as we went. But we still use these every day as much as you can all year. They're very handy. They're 3,800 Imperial, but they fit into some spots where these big tanks and tractors don't fit, and these work really good in there. And they're pretty versatile units. They can go in if you just got to do a little bit. They can pull a few loads out or a lot of loads, whatever needs to be done. They work well with us. They work good. Yes, and there's our drag hose running too, like Larry, same idea. We're still pulling. I'm listening to Larry quite a bit today on how he's spreading and what he's doing, and yeah, and he has some good ways how he wants to do it too. We're still on the angle, doing it. I don't know if you want to call it the old way or the different way, but nope, he's got some good ideas that we want to maybe entail in our company also. We invested in a pipe bridge here to get up over the road for the drag hose. Larry had talked about that. There's some places you just can't find a culvert. They're just not around. So you bring this in, and municipalities have been very forthcoming and happy with it. Good to see. And if it keeps the tankers off the road and you can run a drag hose, they're all into that too. It's a great idea. That's kind of what Pit King is, and kind of what we do.
Colin, just before you close that, go back to that last slide, if you could, just while you've got it handy there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your excellent slides and great presentation. So I just want to start with that because that slide is right there. And I'll be honest, I have not seen one of those in person. It's nice to see a photo of that. Ron, how did you find in terms of dealing with municipalities and approving? Because I know in Ontario anyway, we've had some real issues in the past with municipalities being very concerned about things crossing the road. Larry, you touched on this as well, using culverts, like going under the culverts, permanent pipes, and so on. But I'm just curious on your conversations with municipalities. Have they been, have they accepted this okay? And and any comments there, Ron, and then Larry, maybe you as well after Ron.
Yes, they've been very accepted towards it. I call ahead and tell them what we're doing. And like Larry said, we've always gone through culverts, and we never asked permission to do that. We just kind of do it. So then I know it's different going over top, but we're not running tankers. There's no dust. It's totally different again. And on this job here, I called the municipality, told them and we have a good relationship with them. And that's important because they can, if you don't, that's not a good thing either. You got to work with people. So then, and we told them what we were doing, and yep, no, we're going to be there. And I said, okay, we're all set up. Come have a look. And they were like, oh, it's all good. Just keep going. We got other things to do. You're doing it good. And then they came by later and looked, and they were happy with it. And we've been in 3 or 4 different municipalities, and they've all been accepted it, and they've come out and checked it out, and they thought it was a great idea. It's a good system to, it eliminates tankers on trucks on the road, traffic on the road, and some road damage too that can happen.
Larry, your comments? And you're muted right now. Just if you could unmute, Larry, then we can hear you okay.
So the pipe bridge is is really new technology that's coming on the market. We haven't made the jump yet. One thing we found with our unit that we put on the road, we have had some negative feedback from municipalities. When we talk to them and go through our list of protocols and safety measures we have in place, they don't like it, but they don't stop us from using it. And so when we start a job, the last thing we do before we start spreading is put our unit on the road. And the first thing we do as soon as the job is done is get that unit off the road. And so the unit cannot be left on the road overnight unattended. It has to come off the road when we quit for the day. But we try and time it so that we can start our job first thing in the morning and have it well off the road before the end of the day is near. So we do have some permanent pipes that were installed, so there's no intrusion to the traffic with them. We've got one customer that put a PVC underground pipeline through, and with one outlet on his pipeline, we can leave the hog farm where the manure is generated. We can go under the road across and partway back to another farm, and we can access 300 acres using a back lane and from that one outlet on his pipeline. So that has made our setup time a lot less. It's a lot better for the farmer because we can access land that very quickly for him. If he would not use a drag hose and would use a tanker to access some of the land that we access from that one pipeline, there's a creek and a small bridge that he cannot cross with a tanker. So he'd have to drive all the way around the concession to get to 150 acres of that 300 acre setup that we do.
Right on. Ron, maybe back to you in terms of using this. I'm also curious on the, driver's side. So folks driving through it and seeing this for the first time, their reaction. Yeah. Have you had any issues or challenges on that side?
Not a lot of thumbs up. People are happy to see it, and you get the other person driving by going real slow, checking it out, not sure what it is, and you can pretty much be guaranteed when it takes maybe 5 minutes to set it up, and it's guaranteed you're going to get traffic. There'll be nobody coming down the road and you're setting the hose up. You set this up, and that's when everybody seems to show up, and that can be an interesting part. But once it's set up, it's pretty quick. We're getting better at it, and but no, it doesn't take long, to maybe 5 minutes at the most to get her set in place. And you can go usually higher now too, but with 14, you're always sure at the 14 feet, we should be legal for everything. And it's all signed up, and there's actually lights on it for nighttime, and there's flashing lights on it. So it's good visibility that way too.
So is this thing, is this thing anchored to the ground, Ron, or is it?
No, it's not. It's freestanding, and you'd think it'd be wavy too, and weren't too sure, but no, it's very stable. I'm not sure we can see the other side, but yeah, it is. It's very stable. It's got brakes on it too, right? It's held in, like the brakes are on right now, so it can't move.
And it's towed behind a pickup truck, correct?
Yep, towed behind a pickup truck. It's a little wide going down the road, so yeah, you're careful where you go and what you do. But no, I've hauled it quite a ways.
Very interesting. Here's a question I'll pose to both of you, and Larry, I'll start with you as well. But you pull up to a farm. How do you decide where you're going to start spreading? Does that happen when you show up to the field? Have you already decided? What are the factors that come in to determine that? Larry, you start, and then Ron.
We use a field measure app on our cell phone. So before we even get to the farm where we're going to be spreading, we know what the distance is between the manure pit and the field where we're going to be spreading. And we can see what the layout is of the field. Is it fairly square? Is it a long rectangle? What obstacles are in the field? So we can do that. Some days I can be spreading 50 miles away from home, and I can sit at my kitchen table and have my coffee in the morning and pull my field app up and check the field out and see what we're up against before I even have my breakfast.
Yep. and we kind of do the same thing with the drag hose, scout it out, get it all figured on the field and area. And then I'll do that with the tankers too. And quite often I'll just go for the drive and check everything out, check driveways out, make sure everything's good. Cause yeah, some equipment can pull in the fields and some's too big. So you just got to make sure everything's good. And yeah, we try to go the furthest. We always want to get the furthest first, start far away and work our way back. Is generally how we try to do it on both systems.
Okay, Ron, while you're talking, just Jason is asking back to the bridge system there. When that's pressured right up and running full bore, is it rocking? Is it moving at all, or
No, a wee bit, just nothing really. Just no, you can hear the manure going through it a bit, but no, it's not rocking. It's not waving. It's very stable.
right on, right on?
We were out in some windy days too, and like back in the early December there, we're like watching it, but everything worked just perfect.
Okay. Maybe a different angle here, asking you both about employees in terms of, how many do you have and managing your employees, and you're getting into some technical stuff here and there's regulations. So just curious in terms of your experience with employees and if there's been changes there and so on. Ron, why don't you start on that?
Yeah, we got 14 employees here we're working with. And yeah, it's a challenge sometimes to get the right one. I find lately we've been able to get, there's been a few more guys coming around, but I've had guys here for 15, 16, 17 years. They've been here a long time. I've had a good relationship with them. I trust them. They know what they got to do. They're good at what they do. I do get, I get compliments from farmers. Sometimes if I get a text, they did this good or that's good, or they tell me, I make sure I pass that on to them. I got a good relationship with my guys. And it can go the other way too. We've had some things, they don't go right, but I want to know, I want the farmer to tell me, customer to tell me what went wrong. Then we can discuss it and see why, so that doesn't happen again. It goes both ways. Like, yeah, there is some, but no. And to challenge, it's you got to remember, it's not their business. Sometimes it's yours. So they do have a life. There's and not something I never went to school for, or never had yeah, learning, working with people. I got a hog barn too, and going to the barn is totally different than dealing with people. But no, it's, you learn to adapt, right? You got to be flexible. In the spring, how do you want to say it? The springtime, you got to get things done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We just got to go and we get done. After that, your kids got soccer, you got something going on, let me know. We can work, we can accommodate anything. Just we need a bit of a notice. That's all. But just working with guys and always thanking their spouse or their other half, because yeah, they're gone from home a lot. They're working with us. They're gone a lot, and you need a good support team at home to make it all work.
Yeah, Larry, comments?
I've just got one employee. So when we're on a job site, it's always myself plus one other guy. Some disadvantages to that, some advantages to that. The one disadvantage is we do have a labor shortage on some jobs. So, and my guy drives a drag hose tractor, so that means I'm in charge of everything else, doing the hose humping, tank agitation, and some days it becomes very stressful. One advantage that I have is that we build a lot of our own custom equipment for doing this. We have very little equipment that is actually produced by a manufacturer. So in the off season, my employee, I keep him employed full time, and we work at equipment maintenance. We work at building equipment. And when you have somebody that works with you and you build a piece of equipment and you take that piece of equipment to the field, they're very understanding as to how that works. So knowing the limitations of how hard we can push the equipment and when we should back off, that becomes pretty important. And it also leads to less maintenance down the road, because the guy, he knows that if he breaks it, he's the one that's going to fix it. That I'm not going to always bail him out. That if he does something stupid, there's usually a consequence to pay for that. And the other side is, if he does something very good, then he also benefits from that too, and a shorter work day or whatever. That's, so it goes both ways.
Right on, right on. Larry, can you comment on the longevity of the hose? And you mentioned it a little bit, but you know, dragging the hose versus the hose humper use. You know, comment on that.
There's quite a few things that influence the life of your drag hose. Sometimes different soil types are harder on hose than other soil types. But what we found using that little thing called the hose humper, we're not stressing our hose. If we didn't use the hose humper, we instead of a 50-acre setup, we get into a 60-acre field. So now it's not worth a second setup. So you just push the equipment that little bit extra to get that extra acreage done. And that's when we used to end up in trouble. And we found that with the hose humper, now we can easily do that 60-acre field. We're not stressing our hose. And since I'm the guy that buys the drag hose, a lot of people think I don't need a hose humper. I can pull hose. Talk to the guy who buys a hose and say, hey, I can get you twice the life out of your drag hose that you're getting now. It kind of makes guys sit up and listen because the hose is your friend. If you don't have a hose, you've got nothing. So the better you treat that hose, the better it is. And the fact that we do large setups at one time, most of our hose damage used to be from winding up the hose at the end of the job and laying it out at the beginning. And because we're not winding and unwinding our hose from setup to setup, we've got a lot longer life out of our hose.
We we did a session last week that was on sand laden manure. Any comments on if you've worked with a dairy farm that's had sand in the tank? Any comments on working with sand in the manure? Larry, you go first.
Well, we've gone we've custom hired guys in with agitation boats to agitate tanks for us. And at the end of the day, surveying our customers, they said the price of agitating the sand and the extra cost in spreading it, by the time they pay for the boat agitation, they thought they were still money ahead by using an excavator to dig the sand out once or twice a year. And from an equipment standpoint, I won't spread any manure that's agitated by a boat. Our equipment maintenance at the end of the day, by the time we fix our equipment up again, we've got nothing left over. I don't know what Ron's experience has been drag hosing sand laden manure, but we've got a big stir stick. It has a big screw on it, and it gets a lot of the sand out, and our customers are happy with that.
Ron?
Yeah, we do a little bit of drag hosing with the crawler, and ours, like, I'm not a fan of it. It's tricky. It does work, but it takes power and boost pumps. But with the tankers, I think you get a better quality manure. Like I understand sometimes with the test I've done, what I've seen, we're pretty close in cost, whether you bring the crawler in and us, or you bring the excavator and the spreaders in. But when you bring the crawler in to do it liquid, the first load you take to the field, it's got sand in it. It's mixed good. So a lot of guys will truck this liquid or tank this liquid far away. So because it's easy, so we'll tank it, and then the spreader show up an excavator, and we'll spread that right on farm. Well, so how many nutrients are you putting on your farm all the time, and what's it costing you to bring not as good a nutrient far away? Like, where's the happy medium of, sure, it may cost, but we're going to get better nutrient to the field farther away doing it with the crawler and tanking that way. But I understand why some guys do it the other way. Got their own equipment, they can just tank it out themselves and bring an excavator in, and no, I see that side. It does work too.
Can you both mentioned compaction, and I'm just want to drill down on that a little bit. Starting with you, Ron, do you hear your customers raising that issue, or is that more where you just are aware of it and you've done it, or are farmers saying, hey, I'm really concerned. I see the size of the equipment pulling in, and I'm concerned about that. I saw the CTIS system you've got on board. You know, what kind of tire pressures are you running at in the field? But just some more details on the compaction side.
Yeah, we are running. We have it on 2 of the units. Some guys want it, and some guy knows of the units that go there. and they're willing to pay for it. And some guys, they're not willing to pay for it. They don't seem to want to pay that extra for us to run it. So we've used that benefit on our own cells. Like we still run down, we use it, but when we're doing long road hauls, we'll increase that tire pressure. We'll get it up there to help save those tires a bit. But in saying that, and it's just how you get into the field and how you spread, what I said before, starting at just measuring it properly and where to be is a great thing. And all those tools on your area like Field and Measure can tell you where to start, stop, and it works out good. You hook it up with your GPS and it's a good system.
Larry?
I was at a demonstration by CTIS, and my comment to them was their testing is very impressive. However, it's only done with weight on level ground. So I said that the challenge that we face is that we do a lot of very hilly ground, and so you're pulling a hose behind you. We're not pulling a tanker, but a tanker, it works as well. And so you've got a steep hill to climb. That equipment is working hard, and you're gonna be getting compaction there. I don't think there's any way you can avoid it, but how can you minimize it? And that's why I think pulling a short hose up the field compared to having that incorporated in a big long pull, you will gain with compaction. And that's, I usually go on crop tours in the off season to see, is there marks in the field that we've left? Can we see them? If there is marks, what can we do to improve our applications so it doesn't happen again the next time?
So you mentioned slopes, and that leads to a question that Dana put in the chat, and I'll just read it right out. How do field slopes impact the spreading decisions? At what point is cross slope spreading unsafe, or perhaps uneven spreading becomes an issue? Larry, do you want to carry on talking about that? Because you raised that around slopes.
Well, the first thing I look at is what kind of residue is there? What kind of soil types are we spreading on? And how much rainfall have we had lately? So we find that going across the hill rather than up and down, that if there's enough crop residue, that help holds the manure rather than going with the rows up and down the hill, that it gives it a runway to take off.
Ron, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, with the slopes, same idea, but then we gotta, like, you're pulling to a field with a 7 or 10% slope. That can be pretty, we're not gonna make it up that. I don't care what you put in front, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah.
And so you really gotta be strategic on your loads, spread over here, and sometimes you do end up spreading half your load one spot and then going to the hilly areas if there wants. But when it gets risky, you just, there's a line that you just don't spread on it. If it feels unsafe, don't do it. And that's about all you can do.
Larry, somebody sent a question asking about rate control. You go from a 6-inch hose, I believe, down to a 5-inch hose to keep the rates lower. But any comments in terms of your rate control?
No, I'm still a little bit old fashioned. I still run 6-inch feeder hose. But then what some guys can't understand is when we get to the field, we run with a total of 3,000 feet of drag hose. So 1,500 of that is 6-inch, 1,500 feet of it is 7-inch. So one guy told me one time, he said, putting a different hose size in your system, doesn't matter where you put it, if you put it right by the pump or if you put it out in the field, you're always going to gain from having larger hose somewhere in your operation. And it took me a bit of time to get my head wrapped around that. But so we do variable rate applications. So if we're spreading on a hayfield and a cornfield side by side, we can do that by varying our ground speed. There's formulas that we use to figure our flow to give us the application rate we want. And we do that by setting our speed. And that's one of the reasons I have a calculator on my cell phone, so that we can be double checking those formulas all the time. And then we can do a rough estimate. So if we figure we're half done the field, have we spread half the manure we're supposed to be spreading in that field? So we can go with the flow meter with our gallons per minute that we're spreading, and it also runs an accumulated total, but we take that gallons per minute, and that's what we use We know our gallons per minute we're pumping. We know what our application rate is. We know how wide we're spreading. So then we calculate what our speed has to be in order for everything to jive.
Okay, so we're just about out of time here. I do want to mention before we close, and Mel Limas has put it in the chat as well. I appreciate that, Mel. Mel is the executive director of Opaca. Opaca sounds like a wild animal we have in the mountains of Ontario, but it's not. It's the Ontario Professional Agri Contractors Association. They started in 2017. Mel is the executive director, and really they're raising the bar for custom contractors in Ontario, particularly around manure management. So great organization. I love you guys, the things you're doing, the research you're doing, the training around regulations. It's been a very, very good organization. So check out Opaca, OPACA, great website, and they're doing some good work. And these guys are a part of it. One final question, just a quick answer. They say you can't manage what you don't measure. And so I'm curious, without going into all the details, but what are some key things that you're measuring, that you're collecting data on and looking at it, that's helping you as you manage your business? And Ron, I'm going to let you go first, and then Larry.
When I first started doing this, trucks were the way to go to bring it to the field. And then all of a sudden tractors came on board going 50K. So we jumped on board with that, and big tanks. We started doing that. Well, the price of them doubled. Tank, everything kind of doubled. Tires doubled. Field's gone crazy. So to be efficient, to go far down the road, was getting to be a question. How could we charge the right amount for the farm and make it feasible? So now for 24, I've actually built 3 highway trailers to start transporting manure farther down the road to be more efficient, more economical for everybody, for both to help the farm to make it more efficient and economical to get it further down the road. And that's what I see different. We're always, and Larry, the same way, we're always looking ways to tweak the ideas, make things better in our industry. Just little things like that. That's and more, like I said, more testing, more manure, soil testing. Use it efficiently. Price fertilizer is high. Come on, you know what I mean? We make it all work together.
Right on. Larry?
Well, in order to stay in business, we have to prove to our customers that we're providing a service that's a benefit to them. From my own standpoint, I like to measure how many, I used to say how many minutes in a day are we actually pumping. I don't go by that anymore. I like to think about how many seconds in a day. So if we're working a 14-hour day, how many seconds of that 14 hours are we actually spreading? What can we do to increase our ratio? And the other thing is, how much fuel are we using to do our job? And is there ways that we can do our job more efficiently and save fuel? So the one thing that we've done, like I can't stress this hose humper tractor enough. When you talk about return on investment, ROA, that's the biggest thing that we've done to make a profitable operation. Doesn't matter what engine you have, what pumps, how fast you're working. It's how much wasted time do you have in a day, and how can you cut down on that? And the hose humper has been a great tool for us for doing that.
Fabulous. And that's a great spot to end it, gentlemen. Larry, Ron, excellent job. Really appreciate you talking about your businesses and the things you've been learning. Carl in the chat there, thanks for correcting me on that quote. That according to Dr. Deming, it's wrong to suppose that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Costly myth. That's good. It's funny how we turn things around and use them as we want. But appreciate everybody comments and questions in the chat. We've got posted here now the CEU code. This is for one nutrient management. You're able to grab that. And I wanted to let you know that next week we are going to address the topic of manure additives and really look at what's available out there. How do they work? Are they just foo-foo dust or what? And so this will be an interesting discussion. We've got Don Anderson, who is an ag and biosystems engineer at Iowa State University. He'll be giving us the overview, and then we'll have questions from there. So thank you very much, everybody. Colin, I'll get you to switch now to this is the KSE code if those apply to you. But thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Trust you'll have a good week. Larry, Ron, take care.
Thank you.
You.